Welcome to Engaging ESG, where we consider, challenge, and celebrate the evolving world of environmental, social, and governance communications, all in an increasingly complex landscape. I'm Jennifer Owens, marketing executive and consultant.
And I'm Kati Callens, Global Head of Sustainability at Adobe. For Season 4, we're once again talking with climate leaders who are shaping the present and future of sustainability messaging. From connecting with stakeholders to crafting compelling impact stories, we're uncovering the strategies that worked and learning from those that didn't.
Whether you're a seasoned pro or new to the field, you'll find practical tips and insights in every episode.
And whether you're working on your first sustainability report or reimagining your organization's climate narrative, these conversations will help you navigate the complexities of ESG communications. Let's get started.
Kati, hello. How are you doing?
Hi. Oh, I'm good. Staying cozy and warm over here in San Francisco.
Are we going to really do the temperature comparison with New York? Because it's snowing here.
Let's move on. Yeah.
Are we going to? Are we already starting on a bad note? Well, I'm a bit starstruck by today's guest. I already told him that I love even just his email signature. So that's it's a bit much, but it's true. So let's jump in. And could you do the honors of our introduction?
Certainly. Yes. So this week, we're really thrilled to welcome one of the most respected voices in sustainability and climate communication, in my humble opinion, Joel Makower, chairman and co-founder of Trellis Group. So many of you listening have probably read Joel's pieces or seen him speak. He's for decades been at the forefront of the conversation about how business intersects with sustainability, really helping shape how companies and communicators talk about climate. He's the author of dozens of books, including The New Grand Strategy and Strategies for the Green Economy. And through GreenBiz, Joel has truly built a platform that connects sustainability leaders around the world, from C-suite to startups, with events like GreenBiz, Verge, and Circularity that have become some of my favorite places to engage and connect with my fellow sustainability professionals. And so we're really grateful that he took time out of his busy schedule to join us here on Engaging ESG. Welcome.
It's a pleasure, Kati and Jennifer. It's so great to be here.
And I will also share at the top a fun fact, which is that in my previous role, when Jen and I met at Meta, I was doing a series called Sustainability Tea Talks. And when I was building the infrastructure for how to do that internal interview series, I actually chatted with you, Joel, if you might remember, to say, how do I do this? How do I bring on a guest and make it fun and interesting? And you gave me a piece of advice that I think about all the time with interviewing, which was your goal is to have the audience feel like they're sitting next to us at a restaurant for lunch and have it be that level of conversation. So thank you for that advice that I'm still using to this day.
By the way, could you pass the mustard, please?
Yes, of course. For the Frankfurters. Yes.
Yeah.
There we go. Well, to that end, and she has said that to me, so you have infected me through Kati. So thank you. This is the kind of virus we do like to have. So
well, pass it on, please.
Yeah, here I am. Well, so you have spent a career working with companies and to talk about climate and sustainability and kind of walking that line. And we've watched companies fall on either side of the line of ambition, authenticity. And so I'd like to start big picture. Like, what's the state of climate comms right now? And then a follow-up, climate publishing and climate events. But what are you seeing right now?
It always has this Dickinsonian best of times, worst of times kinds of thing. It really is. And in some ways, it's the bestest of time and the worstest of times, if you will. In other words, we're always seeing cycles, and there have been ups and downs in this field since I've been in it for over 35 years. But the cycles are getting higher highs and lower lows. And so that it's both challenging and an incredible opportunity for those of us who talk about and write about this stuff and publish around these topics. As everybody listening knows, there's been a lot of two things, really. There's the political pushback, not just in the United States, but globally, at least in Europe, and primarily not so much in Asia or South America. And there's the economic uncertainty. And both of those have led companies in particular to cut back on how they talk about this and how they engage in it. It's not necessarily stopping companies from doing the work. And that creates just a really interesting dilemma and an opportunity is how do you talk about sustainability at a time when people don't want to talk about sustainability? And
Right.
yet it's more important than ever.
Right. And building on that, I think that then the messaging piece becomes so important, right? Because to this point of the work is still being done, which when Jen and I were just together at New York Climate Week a couple months ago, we were talking about this, like, right, like there's so many announcements, there's so much ambition. So everyone's talking about climate, but there's also this feeling in the ether, at least to me, that trust is slipping. People are kind of starting to tune out. And so there's this inherent tension. And so wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you're seeing that trend and how like the conversations about how we converse or have these resonant discussions and updates from folks when there's a lot of noise.
Well, the trust crisis is not at all limited to sustainability.
Right.
It's across business, media, science, government, at least at the national level, less so at the local and state level, and NGOs. And there's just a lot less trust. And part of the question is, well, who do we trust?
Mm-hmm.
Who do we want to hear from that would persuade us? You could argue that entertainment stars and athletes may be good, but at some point, how much do you want to hear? We love them dearly, but from Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, influencers
or any of the others. And so, yeah, and then there's the whole world of influencers, which is interesting. And what role do they play? And how do we emulate them? What do we learn from them about effectively communicating? And so it's a really interesting moment for those of us who have been communicating this stuff. I began my career as a journalist, and I still, on some of my better days, get to commit journalism. But it's not like I used to. There's a lot of other things going on in my world. And so I started writing about this stuff, well, full-time in the late 80s, but I'd written about this stuff going back to the early 80s or even the 70s. Just a note to our listeners, I am about 107 years old.
He only looks 94. Come on, guys.
I've had a lot of work done. So, well, yeah, so I go back a long ways as both a communicator and as a sustainability communicator. And the trust in this moment is really, really hard. There's been so much misinformation, so many misdirections on the part of the fossil fuel companies, on the part of government, on the part of a lot of companies. And so this is the great, in some ways, delicious dilemma of what is the opportunity that comes out of this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, go for it, Jen.
Well, and yet, one of the points of evidence, I think, that the work is continuing, other than companies saying that the work is continuing, is that they keep showing up at your events. And do you feel that? Because we felt it at Climate Week. The events were packed, people were talking, and so they need these common areas, and Trellis is a big convener of that to gather. And so do you feel that as well? Or am I just making that up?
No, you're not making that up at all. First of all, Trellis is the name. Katie referred to GreenBiz, which is our old name. And
whoops.
The company name is called Trellis. And you've been around with us.
Old branding dies hard.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, sorry about that.
You used to work for Facebook, right?
I do, yeah. Just shows that I'm cool. I was there at the beginning.
You're almost an OG on this. But we learned a long time ago in the event space that the success of an event is certainly partly around the content, and it's certainly partly around the experience, the ambiance, the side events, just what you get to do while you're there beyond the sessions, but it has a lot to do with creating community. And we know with our GreenBiz conference, it's still called GreenBiz, that runs later this month in February in Phoenix, that it's a community of 2,000 sustainability professionals. We know this because during COVID, when we couldn't all go to Phoenix, and there was a time when we thought, I guess, it looked like things were going to ease up. And then I don't know if it was Omicron or one of those things. God knows, we've blissfully forgotten all those names, or maybe it's Delta, whatever it was, all of a sudden cropped up. And it's like, oh man, maybe that was in the fall of 22 or 21 or 22, I can remember. And it's like, oh, maybe we can't go to Phoenix, do the live event in Phoenix in February. And people were telling us, we're going to come to Phoenix anyway because we want to be together, even if you don't do it. I don't know if they were serious, but it was the spirit of that intention, I guess, aspiration, that really meant a lot to us. That there was last year, in February 2025, we had the event. It was 3 weeks after the inauguration of the US president. And people were pretty freaked out, as it turned out, with good reason. But they were pretty freaked out, and they came with their shoulders down and they're mumbling, just sort of downcast. And they left walking heads held high, smiling and feeling that we got this. So there is great importance and value of community. And so Climate Week is another one. I was at Climate Week, similar kind of thing. It was 8 months into the Trump administration, and we could really start to see how bad things were getting for the sustainability world. And people came together and just had it's really important because this work has never been easy. Sustainability people have always swam upstream, whether it's in society or in their organizations or sometimes their families and community. I don't know about you both, but people ask me on a dinner party or something, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I have a company and do a number of things in the area of corporate sustainability and clean climate tech. Fumbled saying it because I should have said it better. And they look at me and they sort of pause and they say, good for you. And I actually don't know what they mean in that moment. Like, thank you, we really appreciate that. Or how noble of you to sacrifice your career for the greater good.
Right.
And I've sacrificed nothing, by the way. I had a great career. I lived large. So I don't feel that wish I could have done better, doing something else. I love my work, my community, all y'all in this community. So it's really hard. I forget where I was going with that, but we swim upstream. And so coming together is really, really important. And aside from the actual knowledge and wisdom that gets exchanged in those moments. Kati, you've been part of something that used to be called the Green Biz Executive Network. Now it's called the Trellis Network. And pre-COVID, we had mostly in-person meetings around the country at corporate headquarters. And there'd be 20 or so people around the table, all from large companies, billion-dollar plus revenue companies. And led by our great friend and colleague, John Davies. He had these great conversations, Chatham House, but people really leaning in and sharing. And one of the many things I love about this community is that there's this uncommon spirit of generosity. And a lot of it's pre-competitive information, but even that doesn't always get shared in other industries. Like, yeah, come on over, I'll show you what we did, or I'll send you the deck we use to sell it internally. I'll even send you the contract language or the writer we put in our supplier agreements that enabled us to do that thing. And that's incredibly valuable. And that's another key part of coming together.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. And I think we're recording this in a week that I feel like I've been really swimming upstream, and perhaps my goggles have been thrown out onto the bank of the river and I have salmon hitting me in the face. So I do think
they're hitting you in the face.
Yeah.
She's
I think they're swimming out
upstream
to
a little too far. But
maybe they're going to the ocean. I'm going upstream. Who knows where this metaphor is going truly. But suffice to say that it is in these weeks that I like the loneliness of this work and how many times we have all had the same conversation with the same executives, explaining them the business case and feeling like, why are we still having these conversations? And the community piece and the communication piece is great, because I do think I often describe this role as like an internal community organizer for sustainability. And so when that is your role, like, you need to have those resources, which we get from our peers, which is great. And sometimes you just can't put together another deck explaining the same goddamn thing that you've said 72 times in 72 different ways. And so having that, whether it's a resource from a colleague or just oh yeah, we've been in those trenches too, it helps keep you in there, because I do think sometimes, unfortunately, people leave this field because they get too burnt out on the uphill.
There's a whole lot of Groundhog Day going on in sustainability. And I see it, for example, at those Trellis Network meetings, which are both virtual and in person these days. At some point, the people sitting around the table, again, virtual or not, get really animated around recycled cups. And it's like one of those insert face palm emoji here. It's like, I can't believe we're still talking about that among the sustainability professionals at some of the world's largest companies. I mean, are you kidding? And yet, that's what's on their mind.
It's a tangible, visual thing that they can point to.
Getting people to change things like that, which is fundamental to sustainable business. I remember this conversation. At one of our Green Biz conferences, I've done this twice, but one time I interviewed Gavin Newsom. He was then Lieutenant Governor of California. He had just left 8 years as the mayor of San Francisco. And you may recall, as mayor, he had done, at the time, really breakthrough work on gay marriage. And the first ever gay marriage, I guess, laws in the nation. And he really put himself out there on that. And we were talking on stage about some of the things he was dealing with as lieutenant governor then, because he had a number of environmental things. And he said, "You think gay marriage was hard? Try composting." Getting San Franciscans to compost in one of the most liberal cities in the country.
Oh, fascinating.
Turned out to be a thing. And that gets to, I think, this is something that as communicators, we just have to recognize and deal with it. People say, well, what's the biggest barrier to sustainability? One word: change.
Yeah.
Change is hard for individuals, families, communities, organizations of all types, society. It doesn't come easy. It's often fought by the status quo. When it comes to change, we all love the noun, but hate the verb, right? We love the idea of change, but actually changing, not so much. We like what we like. We buy what we buy. We like to do. Don't mess with my world. I like it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. And it makes me wonder, if change is the goal and also the verb of how we get there, how do you see communications as kind of warming people up to get on the change train, so to speak, or more comfortable, maybe just at the station with a bag packed?
Right. But they're not swimming with the salmon. Okay. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
What metaphor are we working on right now?
I'm keeping you on your toes, Joel. At 107, you got to.
We don't want this conversation to get derailed at all. So change happens when change equals better. People say, I don't like change, but holding up my smartphone here, it's like, we've changed incredible. We carry around these things. We have all this information. We know we do things we couldn't do easily. And change happens. Why do we do this? Because it's better. It's expensive. We spend a lot of money to buy, and every month, far more than we spend on these things. But it's better. And sustainability has not always been better. Better depends on what you're talking about, whether you're talking about a house or a blouse or a computer, a car, clothing, whatever it is. It could be cheaper to buy, cheaper to operate, higher quality, longer lasting, better for my health, cooler for my image, locally sourced, bio-based, recyclable, renewable, any number of things. But in general, we haven't seen, and I'm just talking about products here, but in general, sustainability hasn't been seen as better. Of course, it is. It's about better health, better energy and living quality of life, cleaner air, more access to clean water, all the things that we talk about, food and housing and everything else, if we're really talking about full spectrum sustainability. But we haven't really placed it. It's positioned by the other side, the oncoming train, if you will, Katie, as it's worse. You've seen the rhetoric. We have to stop eating hamburgers and we have to not drive or fly. And all of these things that try to position as going back to some dark ages. And what we haven't done well is make the case that sustainability equals better in any number of ways. And I think that's really the big challenge and opportunity that we all have.
Well, Katie has talked about some hot takes, and I would love you to lead us down a path of heat, Katie.
Wonderful. Yeah. I think we could talk to Joel all day about this, but want to get some kind of quick reactions, hot takes on a couple of observations that we've been having about sustainability comms lately.
Yeah.
What do you think, Joel?
I'm in. Go for it.
Okay, great. So at Verge this year, I heard Dave Stanges, who's former CSO at Apollo, say he always coaches his team to hear the term ESG as future risk and sustainability as future value. Do you agree? Is it time to retire these terms or simply reframe for our stakeholders?
Well, Dave Stanges is one of the wisest people I know in sustainability. He is an OG. He's been there and done that at Intel and Campbell's Soup and now at Apollo Group, one of the largest asset management firms. And he's incredibly wise. And yeah, I mean, language matters. We're all communicators. We know that. And what we call things and how we label things is really important. And the other team, if you will, knows all about labeling and positioning things in a certain way. ESG, which was created as an investment vehicle, as a way to assess companies through the lens of investment, became a lazy shorthand for sustainability, environmental, any number of things. And it was very easy to ridicule. And it was ridiculed. And yet, again, these things are still going on. ESG is still called that in the investment world. There are still funds and there are still fund managers on the buy and sell side who think about this stuff every day. Whether they use that term or not, they still do, I think, but some may not. But the idea was that ESG is a proxy for a better company, and it measured in any number of different ways, and the traditional profitability and all the different stock indices and price earning ratios and all the ability to attract and retain talent and be a preferred supplier. And of course, the reputational stuff. But a lot of that's now being questioned, actually. The financial metrics, is that really true? And there's always this dilemma between what's really causing what, correlation and causality. In other words, if sustainability leaders are more profitable, is it because of their sustainability initiatives, or does being a better run company give them the luxury to indulge in these costly sustainability things? I mean, those are two different arguments, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. So ESG turned out to be a bit of a political landmine. And I think most companies have backed off that. We all keep coming back to the S word, to sustainability, even though pretty much everybody says it's a horrible world. We don't like it, but nobody's been able to come up with anything better. And so we may be stuck with that. I mean, we may have to learn how to talk about it. The real question is how is not the words themselves, even though I did start off this by saying words matter. They do matter, but it's how you frame the words. It's the framing of what is sustainability. And again, if we can say that sustainability is what enables us to thrive, and sustainability is what enables us to have the necessities and the luxuries that we all want in our lives and in our society and in the world. Sustainability is what uplifts lives. We haven't positioned it that way. And the ways we did characterize it early became caricatures in again, on the other side, saving the whales and tree hugging and a lot of those things that some people still wear proudly, but is really meant as a slight on all of these activities that are not just about that. But we did talk about saving the world. We did talk about saving the whales. We did talk about saving trees. And it's really not about that specifically. It's about saving us and saving our way of life. And that's a really hard thing to communicate, particularly when we've spun off on the wrong track. Sorry, this is way too much for a hot take, but don't get me started. But obviously you did.
Well, it's a great seg to the next hot take, corporate sustainability marketing. Good, bad? Is it ruining everything? Did they run too fast, too far, and now we're all been left behind? What's your take?
There's not a question you're going to ask me in this world where the answer doesn't begin with, it depends. And it depends on, not all marketing is bad. Some of it's really quite good. Some companies do it relatively well, but I think we spend a lot of time in the sustainability world celebrating incrementalism at a time when we need to be looking at transformation. And that's a lost opportunity. And it trivializes what sustainability should be about. And so I think companies have pulled back because of the political headwinds from talking about this stuff. And as they, and I believe they will, during 2026 and certainly into 2027, start poking their heads back out of the hole and start talking about this stuff and being more public about this stuff and recognizing that it's safer than it felt back in 2025 to talk about sustainability, that they'll do a lot better. It's not going to be about, they're going to be looking at this stuff, first of all, from much more hardcore business perspective. The real business case for sustainability is not just about growing revenue or cutting costs or attracting, it's about risk, financial risk, technological risk, reputational risk, right to operate risk. If you're the biggest water user in a water-stressed area, which is almost everywhere these days, you may not be welcome. If your data centers setting up in certain parts of the country, you may not be welcome because of the energy and water constraints and noise and other things. So risk is becoming a big part of this. And the term climate risk is finally becoming part of the conversation, that the risk is does to supply chains, as we learned during COVID, they're very brittle, the risk to customers, to employees, just to a lot of things. And so as this gets framed as risk, and the flip side of risk is opportunity, I think companies will come out talking about this stuff better whenever they decide to come out.
So it's not just, so we can blame Beyond Petroleum for their idiocy.
If ever there was a poster child of a company getting way ahead of its skis, I think it may have just been jumping off the cliff without skis. That because Beyond Petroleum was never more than a fraction of probably less than 1/10% of BP's revenue, even at the peak of when they had a solar company and a bunch of other stuff. Boy, that's the poster child. So yeah, but that's egregious. And most things, we could do a whole nother conversation about greenwash. And I don't think greenwashing is anywhere near as bad as people think it is.
Yeah.
What they call greenwash, I just think is sloppiness, frankly, or amateurishness. But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation, probably.
I'm glad that you brought up greenwashing at the end there, because I do think when we talk about communications and how to get out strategic messaging, there is this speed of which often communications get created, right? And maybe it's the comms person isn't always able to research all of the language or the technicality. And so stuff does get presented. And there is a lot of greenwashing policies and stuff that we've been talking about on this podcast. And I do think there are some very intentional campaigns to misalign and confuse people. But often greenwashing is the result of the fact that this is an incredibly complex field that is changing quickly, and each sector is very uniquely challenging in and of itself. And I think that's also why, to your point around language, we probably keep coming back to the term sustainability. Like, it is a simpler framing of a big swath of the work that we all do. And I think there's this pull for, like, how do we get back to the basics a little bit?
Well, most things in business are complicated. Many of them are very technical.
Yeah.
Chemicals or biological complexity. And that's the thing about sustainability, is that it's both head and heart. On the one hand, you have this incredible technical complexity that even the experts can't explain completely, or it takes an expert to explain. And on the other hand, this is about our bodies and our families and our communities and our world. So it's head and heart, and you can go too far in one direction and it's too complex. It's way over my head. It's science. I don't get science. Or you can go the other way, where it's just too, and I say this respectfully with you and I, Kati, are both from the left coast. It's just too California woo-woo. And so it doesn't take too, it's easy to go in the wrong direction. So storytelling is how we integrate head and heart. It's how we make sense. It's how we share ideas. And we just need to be better storytellers.
Yeah, definitely. And I think knowing, like, what are the stories that resonate? How can you make it local to the community? How can you really resonate with, I often think about the conservationist versus debate versus a sustainability environmental advocate. But okay, obviously we could talk to Joel about this for 3 hours, and we're so grateful for his time, but we're going to have to wrap things up here. And we want to do it on a recommendations note, on a high note. And so, Joel, at Engaging ESG, we always like to finish our conversations for asking some questions around, what are you reading, listening to, watching these days? Something that's keeping you inspired to be in this work, sustainability focused or otherwise.
I like listening to non-sustainability podcasts. In fact, non-public affairs podcasts. I've been listening to Smartless, which is a podcast with Will Arnett and Jason Bateman and
Sean Hayes.
Thank you. And also, I just listened to a great, I guess it's a short series, 6-part or so series on Steve Martin, who I've idolized. And it's Adam Gopnik, who's a journalist with, I think, originally with the New York Times, I think then later the New Yorker, who's known him for about 20 years, did this series. And it's about 2.5 hours, so it's in chapters, very much like a similar series I listened to about Paul Simon. Malcolm Gladwell interviewed him, and it's about an 8-part series. It's about 5 hours worth of listening. Really interesting, not just from their lives, where they're both, I mean, Steve Martin's been obviously a stand-up comedian, an actor, a writer, a playwright, and an incredible musician.
Yeah.
And he's combined those all in various ways over the course of his career. And that's sort of how the chapters are divided up. But it's also just, what is a life worth living? A life well lived? And what are the mindsets behind that? And to get to hear those conversations, to be sitting like we're at lunch having those conversations, they're really interesting. So I've been listening to those. And my main activity that I do to just escape is walk. I love to walk. I walk about 5 miles a day, and I've walked that every single day without fail for years. And sometimes I listen to stuff. Sometimes I just listen to my own internal radio station, KJOL. 50,000 watts of nonstop chatter. Sometimes I want to turn it off. But I just love being out in the world. That's the speed at which I like to travel. Sometimes I just want to listen to city sounds, as annoying as they sometimes can be, motorcycles and boom boxes and whatever, sirens. But I love cities. I love being out in them and just letting my mind go. It's so good for my mental health as well as my physical health. So that's one of the ways I just stay in the game.
Oh, well, thank you for being in our game today.
It's been a great joy, Kati and Jennifer. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us. This has been really fun.
Yes, this has been a really great conversation. I feel in community. I really do. It's always nice to be in sync like this. So thank you for being in sync with us on Engaging ESG.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having us. And feel free to catch up on other episodes. We really appreciate you tuning in today to Engaging ESG and learning all that you can from Joel. And he didn't plug it, but I will plug that you can find his writing on Trellis, and also many of his interviews and speeches are on YouTube. There's one in particular I think he did at GreenBiz a couple years ago where it was like a Lorax style poem.
Oh, I did.
Opening.
I opened the entire GreenBiz conference in rhyme.
Yeah.
You can look at it. You can look it
That
up.
was
Makower.
epic.
Look up poetry in motion, I think is the search term you want to use. Joel Makower, poetry in motion.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes too, so folks can find it easily. Thank you so much for joining us today, Joel.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you for joining us on Engaging ESG. Have a question for us to consider or a strategy you'd like us to cover? Email us today at engagingesg@gmail.com.
Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to Engaging ESG today. It helps us grow, and even better, be sure to share the podcast with your favorite sustainability, diversity, or social impact colleague. And until next time, keep engaging.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.